US President Donald Trump launched a multi-front trade assault on Brazil, threatening it with massive new tariffs and demanding the end of criminal charges against his ally, former President Jair Bolsonaro. Now, I'll tell you why this is so significant, because Trump's tariff letter to Brazil is far more aggressive, with a much higher levy than any other trade missive he's sent out this week. And it prompted Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva to push back on what he called interference in the nation's affairs. But this letter threatens $42 billion in annual US imports, everything from steel to coffee, and the potential collapse of a trading relationship with one of the few countries where the US runs a trade surplus. The letter goes on to insist Brazil has treated US social media companies unfairly, accusing the government of censoring free speech and threatening a 50% levy on Brazilian imports. But do note that letter makes no mention of the additional BRICS levy that Trump had just recently threatened. But at 50%, Brazil would face a higher tariff than any other country in the world, based on the rates the administration has confirmed so far. And as I mentioned, Brazil's president, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, firmly rejected Trump's demand that legal proceedings against former President Bolsonaro be dropped, and his claim that a 50% tariff on Brazilian imports was necessary to close a trade deficit that does not in fact exist. We spoke to international relations analyst Uria Fancelli. She gives us the lowdown from Sao Paulo.
Trump's 50% tariffs on Brazilian products might have, in a very limited sense, a political angle. He's clearly trying to protect Jair Bolsonaro, Brazil's former president, from what he's calling a political witch hunt by the country's judiciary. Let's not forget, Bolsonaro tried to stage a coup in January 2023, very similar to Trump's Capitol riot. His supporters invaded the buildings of all three branches of government in Brasilia, and as a result, Bolsonaro is now banned from running for office and could even face prison. So this pressure from Trump isn't just about economics, it's a message to his own base. He's presenting Bolsonaro as a victim of the same forces he claims are after him. It fits his narrative. Strong leaders silenced by institutions fighting for freedom. But honestly, I don't think that's the real reason behind such drastic economic measure. What really matters is timing. As I've been saying all week, this announcement comes right after the BRICS summit hosted by Lula. And Trump had already threatened to slap tariffs on countries that took what he called an anti-American stance. So this move is clearly part of a broader strategy to punish governments he sees as challenging the US global dominance. And it has nothing to do with trading balances. In fact, Trump's letter claims that the US is being treated unfairly by Brazil, but that's simply not true. The United States actually runs a trade surplus with Brazil. So this isn't about correcting economic injustice. It's about sending a political message. And there's more. Trump has always used economic pressure as leverage. He did it with Mexico, he did it with Canada, and he's even talked about taking control of the Panama Canal to push out foreign influence. His goal is to reset US influence in Latin America, not through dialogue, but through pressure. And tariffs are his favorite tool. This isn't about defending shared values or protecting American voters. It's about control, about reshaping the map of influence in the region and selling that as patriotism to his base. He wraps it in slogans, but in the end, it's old school power politics dressed up in America First language.